In the 13th and 14th centuries, the world was more connected than ever before. Under the vast Mongol Empire, the Silk Road thrived. A great artery of commerce stretching from the heart of China to the shores of the Mediterranean. It wasn't just silk, spices, and porcelain that traveled these ancient paths, but ideas, cultures, and technologies. The Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace, had created an unprecedented era of exchange, a golden age of globalization. Caravanserai, bustling desert inns, were filled with the chatter of 100 languages and the scent of exotic goods. Marco Polo's accounts painted a picture of glittering courts, vast riches, and a world brimming with wonder. But this remarkable network, this highway of human progress, was about to become something far more sinister. And seen by the merchants and the khans, it had become the world's first biological superhighway. Beneath the surface of this vibrant world, a deadly passenger was on the move. A tiny bacterium, Yersinia pestis, harbored within the fleas that lived on black rats. For centuries, it had existed in isolated pockets, but the new global connectivity gave it a perfect route to spread. As the caravans moved, so did the rats, stowing away in sacks of grain and bundles of cloth. Each stop, each bustling market, was a potential new point of infection. The very system that brought prosperity was now poised to deliver devastation. The merchants, unaware, were not just traders of goods, but couriers of a coming apocalypse. The Silk Road was no longer just a path of opportunity, it had become a fuse, slowly burning its way across the continent, leading to a cataclysm that would reshape human history. As if this wasn't enough, the Earth itself seemed to turn against humanity. The climate began to shift dramatically, ushering in what we now call the Little Ice Age. Temperatures plummeted. Summers grew short and cool, winters long and brutal. Across Eurasia, harvests failed year after year. Famine stalked the land, weakening populations and making them more vulnerable to disease. This climatic upheaval had another, more direct consequence. The changing environment put immense pressure on rodent populations in the wild steppes of Central Asia. Their natural food sources vanished, forcing vast colonies of plague-carrying marmots and rats to move, to seek sustenance in closer proximity to humans in their fields, their granaries, and their homes. The ecological balance had been broken, and the stage was set for the bacterium to make the jump. The vibrant cities and farmlands of the Silk Road were now a perfect breeding ground for a pandemic. The final, decisive spark occurred in 1346, at the Crimean port city of Kaffa, a Genos trading post besieged by the Mongol Golden Horde. As the siege dragged on, a mysterious illness ravaged the Mongol army, killing thousands. In a desperate, horrifying act, the Mongol general, Janib, ordered the corpses of his plague-ridden soldiers to be catapulted over the city walls. This was one of the first recorded instances of biological warfare in history. The Genos defenders, terrified, watched as the grotesque projectiles arced through the sky, bringing death with them. The plague quickly took root inside the fortified city. The siege was broken, but not by force of arms. The surviving Genos merchants fled, taking to the sea, desperate to escape the horror. But they were not alone on their ships. The plague was with them, hidden away, ready to set sail for Europe. In October of 1347, 12 Genos galleys sailed into the harbor of Messina, Sicily. The townspeople who gathered at the docks were met with a ghastly sight. Most of the sailors aboard were either dead or gravely ill, their bodies covered in black boils that oozed blood and pus. The Sicilian authorities hastily ordered the death ships out of the harbor, but it was too late. The rats had already scurried down the mooring ropes and onto the shore. The disease exploded through Messina with terrifying speed. People would go to bed healthy and be dead by morning. Few turned to panic. The glittering gold and opulence of the Mongol courts seemed a world away from the bleak, darkened streets of Europe, where the only sounds were the tolling of funeral bells and the rumble of the death carts. From Sicily, the Black Death spread like wildfire, following the maritime trade routes to Italy, France, Spain, and then inland, consuming the continent. The scale of the devastation was unimaginable. Within 5 years, the Black Death wiped out an estimated 30 to 60% of Europe's population. Entire villages vanished. Their homes left to crumble, farms were abandoned. Reclaimed by nature, the world that had seemed so robust, so full of promise, had been shattered. The Silk Road, once the vibrant heart of global exchange, fell silent. The caravans stopped coming. The bustling trading cities dwindled into ghost towns, their magnificent structures slowly buried by the sands of the desert. The great network that had connected East and West for centuries was severed. The collapse was not just economic, it was biological, ecological, and psychological. The world had fundamentally and irrevocably changed. The medieval era, with its rigid social structures and feudal systems, could not survive such a profound shock. The world that emerged from the shadow of the Black Death was entirely new. The immense loss of life had a paradoxical effect. With labor now scarce, the surviving peasants and artisans found themselves in a position of unprecedented power. They could demand higher wages and better conditions, breaking the bonds of serfdom that had defined the Middle Ages. The old feudal order crumbled. The psychological impact was just as profound. The plague had shown that death was the great equalizer, striking down popes and kings just as easily as peasants. This led to a questioning of old authorities, particularly the Church, which had seemed powerless to stop the catastrophe. People began to look for answers not just in faith, but in humanity itself, in science, art, and exploration. This shift in thinking laid the direct groundwork for the Renaissance. The depopulated cities of Italy, once centers of trade, became crucibles of artistic and intellectual rebirth. The fall of the Silk Road was more than just the end of a trade route. It was the violent death of one world and the painful birth of another. The magnificent highways of the Pax Mongolica, symbols of human connection and progress, had carried the seeds of their own destruction. The Renaissance, with its glorious art and humanist philosophy, rose directly from the ashes of the greatest demographic disaster in recorded history. It forces us to confront a difficult and timeless question, one that resonates deeply in our own interconnected, globalized world today. Does global progress always carry an invisible price? As we build our own modern-day Silk Roads of digital information and high-speed travel, what unseen passengers might we be carrying with us? The story of the 14th century serves as a somber reminder that our greatest triumphs can harbor our greatest vulnerabilities. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. The echoes of these events still shape our world in ways we are only beginning to understand. If you found this documentary insightful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what other historical turning points you'd like us to explore. Until next time.